Hello ladies, I'm Mrs. Sherman and I'm making these videos for my blog. The link for which I'll include in the description box if you want to go there and make a comment or contribute. I really appreciate it because I'm not allowing comments yet on the video channel. I didn't want to monitor more than just a couple of things on the web, and so you're welcome to go over there and join us and get in on some of the other things that my blog provides. And this is a homemaking video designed to support those ladies who are at home full-time or who want to be, and to give them a sense of support and that someone else is also at home. Because to tell you the truth, you cannot homemake in a group like you can other businesses or other types of efforts. You will be mostly on your own. As far as I have a list here of the many things that a homemaker is in her own, the many capacities that she fills, and she will be doing most of it by herself. So there can be occasionally moments of feeling that you have that you're alone, that you're isolated, and you wonder just if there's any support. And one of our problems is we've all grown up in groups. If you've gotten up and gone somewhere else as soon as you woke up, you know, whether it was to a school or a business, it can be hard to get in the habit of staying home and to make that prosper for you. But I will tell you one thing: the more you're home, the more money you save, unless of course you're spending it at home online. And the less that you have to go out, the less expense there will be, especially for transportation. So it's very hard sometimes to get used to staying home. But if you will divide your days, as I said in my previous video, divide your days into morning, noon, and evening, and give slots of time for certain activities, you start to get a sense of how a day has rhythm and how it goes at home. So today I'd like to cover the fact that a woman at home has so many roles, and one of them is, these are not in particular order, and one of them is social director. You know, back in the 1950s, when anyone asked my father, could he bring his family over for dinner after church on Sunday, he said, and all the men did this, well, let me ask my social director first, or let me ask my wife, or they would jokingly say, I'll have to ask the boss first. Because our moms, the women, the wives at home, had to keep track of all these things, had to keep track of the obligations and the birthdays and the events, because the men were such hard workers. They worked such long hours, often very tired when they got home. Didn't keep day timers in those days, and they often just told the woman, and she would write it on the calendar. And so they always said, I'll have to ask my wife first. And no one thought anything of it. It was just a courtesy. And but today, you know, there's a thing going on where you can't control or direct anything at home, but you can and you must, because a man cannot do it all. And if you are in charge of the home, these are some of the things you're in charge of. You're in charge of the social activities. You will have to keep track of where you're obligated to go, what things you will accept and what things you won't, and you'll have to keep that straight for everyone, or they'll start missing things. Okay, the other thing is the big thing called the helpmeet, and so you're a helper to your husband. But you cannot be a helper, a true helper, if you're passive. If you see something that is harmful to the family, to the home, to your bank account, to your reputation, anything like that, you're obligated to bring it to your husband's attention, because he cannot properly guide do his share in guiding the family if he doesn't have a helper that's on the lookout for him, that's watching for him. And in one of my previous articles, I had told about how a ship has a captain and a first mate, and the first mate does all of the lookout. He does most of the work, actually, and the captain does not expect to stand over him and make sure that he does it. He's trusted, and he's reliable, and he's capable. So I want to interrupt this talk right now and tell you that these videos are made so that you may go somewhere in your house, and if you have something to do that's a little bit repetitive, whether it is loading your dishwasher or folding some clothes, or you can even hang out some clothes if you can take your little device with you. And please don't sit here and watch me, because there isn't anything going on. There's nothing to watch. It's been a week since I have made a video. And years ago, when we used to share pictures in the mail, real pictures that you mailed, to give an updated version of yourself, my husband's cousin would write to him, and he would send her pictures of our family, and we never got any of her and her husband. So he asked her, why didn't you send us a picture last year? And she replied with the cleverest remark. She said, we were waiting to get younger, thinner, and better looking. And I always laughed so much at that. I thought, that is so funny. So this last week, the reason I didn't put out a video is every time I got ready to sit down and do it, I lost my courage, because I thought, I should wait till I'm 10 pounds lighter and 10 years younger and much better looking. So I waited for a week and nothing happened. So you'll just have to take it as it is. But I thought that was such a cute remark, a cute excuse. Okay, so a woman at home is also the caregiver in many ways. She's expected to nurse people when they are sick. And years ago, in the 1950s, in the high schools, the girls got to take a course in home nursing, caring for someone who's recovering at home, or for someone who just isn't feeling well and they have to go to bed, and just showed you how to make their beds, how to freshen their rooms, how to bring them food, what kind of food to bring them, how to bring them activities, children especially that were homesick. And we need those caregivers, plus how to give encouraging and soothing words when someone is sick. And it's so important to be a good caregiver, and to also, when people are well in the home, to be a caregiver, because you're going to prevent illness, and you're going to prevent accidents, and you're going to give them a sense of well-being in the home. And I think one of the most, what I would say, I'm trying to think of the word, reassuring feelings that you can get from your caregiver, your mother or your wife, or someone who cares about you, is to have them pray for you when you're sick. That really helps. And of course, I have grandchildren that think that when you send a get well card, a real get well card made out of paper in the mail, that people actually can get well. It's like medicine. So I'm drinking a little bit of this hibiscus tea that someone sent me, and it's really lovely. It's citrusy. So the next thing that I have on my list here, and this isn't in any kind of order, is clothier, for lack of a better word. I don't know if you could actually call it clothier, but food and clothes are going to be the two things that absorb you in homemaking. You're either going to be washing clothes, or making clothes, or buying clothes, or mending clothes. And so the care of clothing is one of the things that you'll be doing. Plus, you'll be observing when you take the dry clothes off the line, what's too small and what's torn, and what needs to be exchanged or abandoned, or what needs to be replaced. And so this is going to occupy a lot of your time, is clothing, and shopping the sales too, that sort of thing, getting them out of the attic for the winter clothes. Clothing is going to be a big deal. and food provider. Now, whether you are growing your food or having to buy it at the market, a great deal of your time is spent occupied with food, either getting it, storing it, serving it, cleaning it up. And I used to wonder why these retired people would bother to grow gardens in their backyards. It seemed like such hard work. Why were they doing all that? Well, it's such a delight to eat food straight out of the garden. It has a much different taste, and it digests in a different way, and it also gives you life even while you're eating it. You feel it. It's so different. And so these elderly people will grow food till the day they die because they got used to the taste, and they don't like the commercial food as well. Even the commercial fresh produce is not the same as what you grow yourself. And I got to thinking the other day how many times women, our mothers, went to the grocery store, brought home the groceries, unloaded them, put them away, and I wonder if anyone ever thought to thank them. That's a lot of work. I've been through years of it, and sometimes last minute grocery shopping if someone was coming over. That's a labor, and that is a big part of homekeeping. You're going to be absorbed with the food, preparation of food, the procurement of food, the planting of food, the harvest of food, and the purchase of food. So food is a big deal, and many women have made a fine art of it once they got used to being home and they had the time to think about it, read about it, study about it, have done excellently. So the housekeeper is another job that I have listed here. The housekeeper, I understand that even if you aren't able to do your own housework, at least you can see that it gets done. However, it's important to at least know what to do and how to do it, because when you look after your own house and your own things and you do your own cleaning, you start to notice things. You notice where things are, and you notice things that need to be abandoned, and you notice things that need to be replaced. And when you have someone else doing all that, you might not notice it so much. And in housekeeping, one of the things that I have noticed to keep away that feeling of dread and unsettlement sometimes you get at home, mainly I used to think it was because of being isolated. But really it could be because a room or something in your house has not been tended to. And when you get a feeling of dread in approaching a certain room, or maybe a box of stuff, and you just don't even want it, that's a signal that that's what needs to be worked on. And you'll find that the more you clean out your rooms and keep your rooms in order and keep them in a pleasing manner, the less dread you have. The more you clean out your closet, the less dread you have. So here's another thing that women at home become, maybe without even getting the education for it, and that is interior design. You know, it takes living in your own home. You can watch all the videos you want on interior design, but those things do not work for everybody, because it takes living in your own home and observing the way you live and the traffic patterns through certain rooms for you to discover that perhaps you need to rearrange something or move something, or just have a different kind of something. So for example, I was in a house once years ago where I had my idea that the furniture had to be placed a certain way because I saw a picture of it once as similar, and I liked it, and that's the way I wanted it. But the traffic pattern meant that in order to get to a certain part of the house, everybody had to walk past the people that were seated on the chairs and couches. So I had to change that, because you want to watch the traffic flow, things like that. You learn a lot just living in your house and just being at home. And many of us are in older homes that are maybe smaller and have special needs, and different eyesores that you can't change. You have to cover up with a screen or something like that. So home design is really, really important, and it will be something that automatically comes with homemaking. So then let's just go on to the next thing that I have listed here. None of it is in order, but hospitality. Have you ever thought that without hospitality, you could lose your motivation for homemaking and for learning to be an excellent cook, or just being creating the home design um, and furniture arrangement and color and all the things that it entails? Without hospitality, uh, you could just sit there and nobody cares. But you have to realize that if you're going to be home, you need to have a pleasant place, a place that you like better than anywhere else. And as I explained before, why is it we like to go to the market and smell the sense of the cooking that's going on, and see the lights, and hear the chatter and the music, and see the colors and the comforts that are surrounding the place, that they want to sell you these things. And so we want to make our homes so that we like them better, where it becomes better to be home than to go somewhere else. And when you say, well, it's time for us to go such and such, your family will plead, please, could we just stay home? So you want to get it to that point. And that takes some study of your own situation, and some observation of what you like and what you respond to, what makes you the happiest. And hospitality is such a great motivator, because if you extend hospitality, that means you invite somebody over for a cup of tea, or beyond that. If you invite someone over, then you're motivated in a different way. Yes, we clean our houses to make our families have a safe and healthy place to live, and we do it because we want our children to be trained by a good example, and we do it because it makes us happy too. But there's something extra about knowing that someone's coming over to accept your hospitality. It motivates you. You stand back and look at it in a much different way. And so hospitality, it can be the core of your housekeeping, is hospitality, because you're thinking, I don't have all day to do this. I've got to do it with alacrity. Or you're thinking, I don't have all year to dig away at some problem in your house. It has to be fixed, because you're expecting company. And company is such a great motivator for yard work, for housekeeping, for your sewing, for the care and grooming of yourself. And so hospitality can be the core, if you like, to your housekeeping. Hospitality. Let's clean up the house today, because we might be having company. We don't know. But wouldn't it be nice to be ready at all times, and not to have that speed cleaning or that stress cleaning? So hospitality is so invigorating that even after company is gone, you feel renewed. You feel happy. Your house has been looked at in a different way by different people, and by you too. And so I would suggest you have hospitality whenever you're able. Not overdo it, but do have hospitality. It does help. It helps you, and it helps those that you are serving. So then the next thing is childcare. Now, childcare at home is not just childcare. It's not just routine childcare, because you are touching a soul and a heart, and you're bonding with people, and you're training them to love the Lord, and to love their family members, and to love the home, and be proud of their father and of their mother. And so it's a lot more to childcare than just giving them food and safety and water. You have to train them spiritually too. You have to feed them spiritually, not just feed them nutritionally. And that would take a lot of videos to explain, but I'm sure you understand that we need to touch their heart. and we need to teach them the truths of life. And child care is more than just physical care. So then we go into, well, what about car care? Everybody has a car, or more. Most women today have their own car at home, so they're free to come and go as they need. And but those cars have to be looked after. You have to look at the date of the appointment to get them serviced. You have to keep them clean. There has to be, I know on Fly Ladies, she has a special day that you go clean your car. And you clean the inside of it, and it's like a house, you use it quite a bit, and sometimes neglect it for weeks and weeks and even longer than that, but it needs to be cleaned just like a room in the house. So the woman is the guide and guard and light of the home. So I want to end this by telling you several stories of our own life. And one of the things that I have said on this blog is that one of my problems is that I have now accumulated more than I ever thought that I would. I used to be very good at eliminating a lot of things. As the children grew up, we would get rid of their clothes and the things that they didn't use anymore. And because the accumulation of it would have just been too much for me. And however, in later years, we found we hung on to a few things a little bit longer because technology changed so much. And my husband likes old-fashioned office materials and often can find them unused. File folders, file containers, and even pens, paper clips, all those things that they used, and papers and notebooks that have never been used. And so he'll buy them, and he has all that stuff in his office. And I forgot to mention that one of the roles of a woman is the office keeper, because she's going to have all the warranties to all the things you buy, your refrigerator, your stove, your hot water heater, and she's going to have all the deeds, and she's going to have the files. And so she's going to have an office where she pays the bills. Now, back in the 50s, the men turned the checks over from their paycheck to their wives, and the wives paid the bills because the men had to be at work and could not do any of this kind of stuff. And so the women knew what was in the bank, and they knew what they had and what they could afford. And the men would, and I just know this from my dad and mom and from observing other people. Father might come home and say, I need a new tractor. Can we afford it, and how much money have we got? And tell me, and she knew all that stuff, and he didn't. But I mean, he earned the living, and he gave her the paycheck, and he was happy that way, happy to have her do the bookwork. So I remember there was a vacuum cleaner salesman, and we had these vacuum cleaner salesmen in the old days. I don't know if we still have them, but they go door to door. And if they weren't going door to door, it was someone you knew, someone at church or someone at work would want to sell a vacuum cleaner on the side. And they made quite a profit on these vacuum cleaners. And I had an old canister vacuum cleaner. That's the one you pull behind you that just has wheels and rides on the floor, and you don't push it in front of you. Anyway, I didn't like it because I couldn't keep looking back and figure out what it was going to run into or get stuck on or knock over. So I told my husband, this vacuum cleaner is on the blink. It doesn't work anymore, but please don't get me another canister vacuum cleaner because I don't like them. Now, he rarely used it because he was gone during the day, and that was when I vacuumed. And in the U.S. at the time, and a lot still today, the women manage the home. I mean, all these things that I listed, they're the managers of, and they manage the home because the man just didn't have time for it, and he's earning a living, and it frees up his time to make a living. And so the wife does the major part of the housework. I know that doesn't work that way in other countries, but this is the way it's working. It works here, especially in the rural country, in the rural areas, in the country and on the farms and out where the man does the labor. Okay, so the salesman heard about my vacuum cleaner, and he told this is back in the 80s, and he told my husband, well, I sell such and such brand vacuum cleaner, and I want to bring it over and show you a demonstration. And my husband said, well, I'm going to have to check with her first because I'm not sure that's the kind she wants. And the salesman was going to make a hefty commission on this, and he became a little bit upset with me and with my husband, and he said, well, yes, but it's your decision. It's your decision. You earn the living, and it's your decision. But my husband knew that I knew what we could afford, and I think he didn't. With him, if there's something that I don't want, he's not going to force it on me. If there's something I don't want to do, and someone wants him to do something, but I don't want to, he's not going to force it on me, and he just wants me to be happy. And a lot of you have husbands like that. So he knew I didn't want that kind of vacuum cleaner, but he did say, I'm going to go home and talk to my wife about it first. And when he came home, of course, I found out the cost of the vacuum cleaner was quite high. And I said, well, right now the children all need shoes, and there's these two bills that have to be paid, and we can't afford payments, and we can't afford the lump sum. And besides that, I'm not happy with that kind of vacuum cleaner. So my husband went back and said, no, we've decided not to do it. Well, the man who was the vacuum cleaner salesman was quite unhappy with me because he said that I interfered with my husband's decision and that I should have let my husband make the decision. Well, you see what was happening here, and this is one way that a wife can be a helpmeet to her husband. She can guide and guard him from these people, because sometimes a man works so hard that he's tired and his judgment is a little bit, he just can't make the decision. And not that he's weak or anything, but he'd just rather not deal with it. And so he comes home and gets his wife to say no, so that to help him out a little bit, or because he wanted to just check with her to be sure, and because he just basically wanted her to be happy. But what the salesman did, and these salesmen did this to women too. They would say, you're not complying with your husband. You're not being cooperative with your husband. And I feel sorry for him because you control him. And all it is that I don't want the vacuum cleaner. And you see that many times these people that wanted your husband to do something when you were younger, maybe they want him to invest in something and he's not sure about it. He wants to consult with you. See, in the old days, the men always consulted with the women. They didn't just take off and buy a new boat or a new car or anything without consulting with the wife, because anything he did would affect their economy at home and maybe force her to go to work to pay for it, and they didn't want that. So when the salesman said, you're not a very good wife because you don't do what your husband wants you to, I began to see something going on here, because I've seen this with teenagers too, where a teenager, maybe 19 or 20, will be living at home, and a friend will want to rent them to rent part of an apartment, and the kids will say, well, I need to go home and talk to my mom and dad about it, and the kids will say, well, it's your decision. You're old enough to make your own decision. But do you see who's making the decision? The vacuum cleaner salesman says to the husband, but it's your decision. You know whose decision it is? It's the vacuum cleaner salesman. It's the person that wants to rent half the apartment to your daughter or your son, because they always say, well, you should be able to make up your own mind. Well, you know who's making up their mind is the salesman. So this is where a wife at home can be cautious and alert and be a good helpmeet and a counselor, and watch out for the family, be a guide and a guard of the home. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. So don't ever let anybody tell you that you're in rebellion or something because you didn't want your husband to buy from this person, or get involved in some kind of a scheme with this person, or go on a trip with this person, or start a new business with this person, because it isn't about that. It's about the other person wanting to use someone in your family so that they may profit. So you need to have your eyes open for that, because if you want to be a good helpmeet, ladies, you cannot be passive. You cannot just sit there like you don't have a brain and not help. You have to guide and guard your home, because everything that you two do, and this can happen to you too, somebody can work on your mind. And so you and your husband have to have an agreement that you'll pass these things between each other and try not to be overly persuasive with one another, and have a look at who's behind it, who's trying to sell it, and how you got interested in it in the first place, and trace it back down. And also make sure that your husband or you don't promise people things. Don't promise them anything, because if the mate doesn't know about it, then you've made a promise, and they don't think that conscientiously they can keep it, and there will be strife. So watch about, you have to guard your home. You have to guard and guide it, and your husband and your family and your house. That is your home. That's what you're supposed to guard. So ladies, those of you who have contributed, I appreciate it so much. Even the smallest amount buys the little sewing notions, you know, the thread and the zippers and the trims and the rickrack and the things that I like have gone up really high, and so even a small donation is very welcome. My PayPal is on the sidebar of my blog, so I hope to see more of you making comments on my blog, because that's what keeps my interest up. And I hope to be back here soon, even if I'm not thinner, younger, or better looking. And please leave a comment. That's just the best, to leave a comment. Thank you for your visits and for your prayers, and I'll see you next time. Bye.